Hello everybody and welcome back to Red Eagle Politics. Make sure you guys like this video down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. So, we are 6.5 months away from the 2024 presidential election, and it's important that we look at the election map. Right here, right now, I have filled out all of the states that are pretty much certain to go in the Republican column and the states that are supposed to go in the Democrat column, all filled in. Yes, there can be surprises, but as of right now, the states that are not filled out are states that I believe could probably go either way, and Minnesota enters the conversation. I think it depends on the third-party vote share, but I will say that Biden is probably still favored in the state of Minnesota. But on the flip side, you look at North Carolina. Donald Trump leads Joe Biden by 4 percentage points, and this is a state where the early polls underestimate Republicans time and time again. Even Quinnipiac has Donald Trump leading the state. And then when you look at the five-way race right here, you can see that Donald Trump's lead goes up to 6.3 percentage points when all of the candidates that will be on the ballot are included, which means that it's going to be difficult for me to see him losing. He's going to win every state that he took in the 2020 election and likely then some, because you look at the state of Georgia, Donald Trump near 50% in Georgia. He leads the state by 4 percentage points. And when you look at the five-way race in Georgia, he leads by nearly 6 percentage points. And while Democrats have achieved some recent successes in the state of Georgia, it's unlikely that Biden is really going to be able to hold the state in his column, being as unpopular as he is, especially now because he's running a campaign on democracy and abortion. That's not going to get out enough black voters for him to take Georgia, because that's really what Democrats still need at this point to take the state. Donald Trump, he's got his base, very strong, very high floor. Georgia's a state that likely ends up going in his column at the end of the day, which puts him at 251 electoral votes. We talk about the path to 270. He needs 19 more, and he can get there a various amount of ways. And we know that, but still, the easiest way would just be to flip one of these states, and there's only one state that has enough electoral votes to get him there, and that state would end up being the state of Pennsylvania, where Donald Trump was yesterday. And this is a state that was very competitive in 2016. It was very competitive in 2020. Both years where Donald Trump was on the ballot. Some people will say, what about 2022? And Donald Trump was not on the ballot in 2022. And we talk about the top of the ticket. You talk about Dobbs. Abortion was a very big issue in Pennsylvania. Republicans ran a candidate for governor who basically said he does not support any exceptions. He ended up losing by over 14 points to Josh Shapiro, who outspent him 50-1 with a barrage of attacks on the issue. Donald Trump is not exactly going to have that problem in a national election, especially when Donald Trump is somebody that can go out there and energize those low-propensity white working-class voters, which exist in high numbers across the Rust Belt, where you kind of see Republicans in midterm elections or off-year elections kind of struggling to galvanize their turnout in many cases, with few exceptions, but especially in the Rust Belt. But you look at polling, and what does polling exactly show? It shows Donald Trump is in the lead in every poll except for one poll, the Franklin and Marshall poll, which is a margin of error of 5.7 points for one, and only has a sample size of 430 registered voters. Now, their previous poll had Biden leading by just one. Was there anything that changed in that time frame to justify a 10-point swing? No, but the poll gets even worse when you look at the five-way race, because Trump not only leads the polling aggregate in the five-way race by 2.2%. And yeah, I don't expect Kennedy and Stein and West to combine for 10% of the vote, but if they combine for 5% of the vote, that's still notable. But when you look at it, that poll actually has Trump getting a higher vote share overall when the other candidates were listed, which is a little weird. And somehow Biden's lead is just 2 points in that very poll, which doesn't exactly seem to add up a whole lot. But nevertheless, you look at it, Trump is likely still going to be competitive in Pennsylvania. The primary is going to be coming up not this Tuesday, but the Tuesday after that. And while it is very likely that Biden gets more votes than Trump because a lot of Democrats will vote by mail, and if you're going to be voting in an election that really doesn't have any implications because the nomination process is decided, I would anticipate the side that can just vote without having to go to the polling place or prefers to vote that way is going to do better. And it's also important to note that Pennsylvania does have more registered Democrats than registered Republicans. It is a closed primary. A lot of those Trump independents are not really eligible to vote for Trump in the state anyways in the primary. I wouldn't read too much into the primary results whatsoever. Some people will, but it's not like a state that has an open primary that's still like in this nomination process where the nomination isn't decided, like we saw in Michigan, for example, or some of these other states where Donald Trump was outrunning Biden by a significant margin. But you look at the state, it's very crucial because if Donald Trump takes the state of Pennsylvania, that's ball game. He can lose Arizona. And we'll see what happens there if the whole abortion thing has any impact. We'll watch what happens in the upcoming polling. We'll see if Biden gets a bump there. It's possible he doesn't, but either way, we'll see. But either way, Trump has a sizable lead in Arizona. He has a sizable lead in Nevada as well, but he doesn't need those states or Michigan or Wisconsin so long as he can pick off the state of Pennsylvania, because it's looking like he's going to hold his 2020 states. It's looking like he's going to hold Georgia. And demographically speaking, Pennsylvania is a state that has, 50% of the electorate being white working class. It's a state that Donald Trump has excelled in where other Republicans have fallen short, and he's accelerated some of those trends in certain areas like Western Pennsylvania that's kind of made the state a lot more competitive than it was and able to vote Republican in certain circumstances that it just previously wasn't. And it's a razor-thin state. Joe Biden, it's technically his home state, some will say. He was seen as their third senator. He was known as that his entire career. But still, the state was close in an election where a lot of things went wrong for Donald Trump, and he didn't really have a lot to exactly run on. Now he has every single issue that he possibly can run on, and it will stick. Everything has gone to shambles under Joe Biden. Somehow Biden is going to try to claim that it's all Trump's fault, and Biden supporters will say, well, actually, the things that are bad under Biden are actually good news for Biden. Yeah, it doesn't work that way. That's not how politics works, and there is a big pathway for Donald Trump to achieve victory in the state. And we have the election shuffler here. Trump just has to make up 80,000 votes, and it's possible just based on turnout drop-off, because turnout is likely going to dip from 2020 to 2024, just like it even did from 2018 to 2022, you're probably going to see that margin affect Democrats a lot more as you look at Philadelphia. For example, Biden with black turnout in Philadelphia, very good in 2020. Still, he lost ground in the county. Now it's a recipe for disaster for Joe Biden, especially as a lot of those low-propensity white working class voters, and in Philadelphia proper, some Hispanics, they're trending to the right. And black voters are disillusioned with Biden. Doesn't mean they're going to vote Trump, but a lot of them may just stay home or not turn out. And that's going to help Donald Trump eat into Biden's margins in that county. We talk about the total raw vote margin. Trump may cut that down substantially. He might cut that down to like around 400,000. And that would basically be enough to doom Biden in the state pretty much based off of that fact alone. Already you see the margin cut from 1.2% to 0.2%. And on top of that, what about the novelty of Scranton Joe in northeastern Pennsylvania, where Donald Trump actually was campaigning yesterday, actually. He was there. And these counties, even in the midterms, didn't exactly bode too poorly for Republicans, comparatively speaking. And we talk about the fact that Republicans won all the counties selected by, 20,000 votes or 2%. It's possible they could really ramp up that margin as Biden has failed his home area. Now that's a talking point Trump can use. He's reaching out to the union voters. His campaign is talking about issues that matter a lot more than his 2020 campaign was. What is that exactly going to do? It's going to stretch out his margin of victory in the area, and already, boom, he has the state. And we could talk about, well, the Philadelphia suburbs. Yeah, but Biden may be hitting a wall just because of his unpopularity. Doesn't mean people are necessarily going to vote for Trump, but a lot of these people in the suburbs, a lot of them may stay home. Some may go third party. And I think that Biden might gain some, but then Trump could easily make it up in western Pennsylvania, Erie County, even in the Supreme Court election, which Democrats were able to win by 6, which was less than expected, actually, mainly because they just hammered abortion home. Biden is really going to struggle to do that, as Trump is kind of saying, leave it to be a state's issue. And while he'll still energize some of his own base on that fact, it's not going to be enough when he's down on every other issue. And based on the conflict in the Middle East, a lot of young voters are disaffected with Biden. The whole ceasefire crowd, they're not going to turn out for Biden. A lot of voters will go for people like Jill Stein, but Erie County likely does flip based off of trends, and that's kind of seen as the bellwether county. It still is kind of a bellwether, and Trump is going to increase his margin of victory overall. Now, we could play around with the suburban shift or whatever in Philadelphia, but then we could also do the same thing down in southwestern Pennsylvania, where those counties have a decent amount of people living in them, but have been getting redder and redder under the Trump era, because not all suburbs are created equal. It's not so much suburban versus rural. It's more college-educated white versus non-college educated white. And that's what people need to understand. So Pennsylvania is going to be a close state. I think that Republicans should be taking advantage of the mail-in system more, or at least request the absentees and then deliver them in person if they have concerns, because that's how Democrats are able to get a leg up on Republicans in the state more so than some other states, even like Michigan, for example, where now there's in-person early voting. Republicans tend to like in-person early voting, like the week before the election. That's how Republicans do so well in places like Texas and Florida and, to a lesser extent, some of these other states across the country. So they do need to take advantage of that to win for sure, because it all comes down to turnout. We know Biden is down on everything. Economy in shambles, foreign policy in shambles. You talk about the border, that's, shambles wouldn't really be enough of a word to describe what's going on at the border. But still, this is a state that is very competitive. It will remain very competitive. And Trump is wise to focus on northeastern Pennsylvania. And you talk about Philadelphia city proper, even some of the Philadelphia suburbs, there is a decent floor for Trump because there's a high white working class population. But also Biden might be kind of hitting a wall in some of these places. We talk about even if Trump got Mastriano margins in some of these counties surrounding Philadelphia, he'd only lose like 2% of ground in the state. We know that's not going to happen. He might lose some ground here, but he'll probably make it up elsewhere. It's going to be a dogfight. It's going to be a razor-thin state for sure, and that we know of. Trump is wise to focus on northeastern Pennsylvania. I've been saying that he needs to do that for a while now. Call out Scranton Joe's failures. It's ironic that he would even dare to call himself that. And as a result, Trump's probably going to end up gaining in Biden's home backyard. He likely will in the process. So this is a very close state, but it's the most important state in the election, one could argue, because if Trump gets it, that's it. Yes, he could lose it and still win. I think that if he lost the state, but the polls are accurate in Michigan and Wisconsin, then Trump does likely achieve victory, and we know that. I still think Trump is the favorite in all of the states not filled in right now, but at the end of the day, Pennsylvania is crucial. So Trump going to Pennsylvania, it's wise. We know it's wise, and if he's able to focus on that, he is going to be in a very, very good position, and if he's able to win it, that's game. Nothing else matters, and Biden will officially be cooked. So that's why it's important. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching this video. Like this video down below, comment down below, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications so you never miss another video. Follow me on social media. The links are all in the description down below, and I will see you guys in the next one. Red Eagle, out.